The story is told of a woman who felt that she was missing something in life. Something's missing. She has to find it. And she's told that there is a yogi, a spiritual virtuoso, a Zen master, who lives on the top of a mountain in a remote part of India, and he radiates holiness and dispenses wisdom all day. People from all over the world come and they make a pilgrimage to his holy site and ask for insights. But she's told it's not easy. First, you got to fly to India. Flying to India is a schlep. When you get to the airport, you then have to get in a car and you drive on unpaved, crowded roads, and you're jostled for 3 days until you get to the mountain. When you get to the mountain, you have to climb to the top of the mountain, and it is a steep climb. And when you finally get to the top of the mountain, there are hordes of other seekers who are there to get the wisdom of this great yogi master. And you have to wait your turn. And then she's told there's one last catch. This yogi is very, very busy. And there are a lot of people who want his time. And he's just so smart, he can intuit a lot from a little. So you can only say 8 words, not 9, not 10, 8 words. And he has a bouncer. The yogi has a bouncer that enforces the 8-word rule. Well, she is so desperate to find what she's missing. She gets on a plane and she flies to India. She gets in a car and she's jostled for 3 days on this crowded, unpaved road. She gets to the mountain and she climbs to the top. She waits her time among all the other seekers who want the wisdom of this great yogi. At long last, it's her turn, and she faces the bouncer who says, "Remember, ma'am, 8 words, just 8 words, no more." And finally, she turns to the great yogi, and she says to him, "Sheldon, come home. It's time to come home." This joke worked better 25 years ago. It's an old joke, I admit it. It's in the official approved manual of rabbi jokes. And rabbis told this joke 25 years ago in a different context. The context then was we had the problem that some of our children were not finding meaning in Judaism, and they were drawn to finding meaning in Eastern religion and other traditions. And so rabbis gave sermons 25 years ago trying to remind our children that God is found in this place, and you didn't know it yet, but it's here, not there in India. And so they told that joke. Now that problem is not our problem today, but we have a different problem today. We have a serious, different problem today. And I need to resurrect that joke and that joke's punchline for our problem today. But to access that problem today, I got to talk to you about this very cool thing that the Oxford Dictionary every year has a word of the year. And the word of the year in 2020 was pandemic. No surprise there. And the word of the year in 2021 is vax or vaccinate. No surprise there. What should the word of the year be, the Oxford Dictionary word of the year, that is just going to take in the ethos, the zeitgeist now? And my vote would be the word liminal. 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 Liminal means you're in the middle of a transition. You're not where you were, You're not where you were, but you're not yet where you're going. You're not where you were. You're not where you're going. You're in the middle. And the quality of being in the middle of a rite of passage, the quality of being in the middle of a transition, is it's confusing and ambiguous. Liminal is confusing and ambiguous. Consider, for example, the difference between last year's Thanksgiving and this year's Thanksgiving. You remember that just a year ago on Thanksgiving, we were told by our health and government authorities, do not have Thanksgiving like you used to have it. Don't have the big family meal. Don't get together with the clan. Do not get on an airplane. Do not drive to see somebody else. Do not let other people fly or drive to see you. Don't even have Thanksgiving with your brothers and sisters in the same town. Instead, do Thanksgiving in your pod, the people under your roof, small, sad, and different. That was last year. Now, thank God this year we're not there, but we are not totally post-pandemic either. We all know people who were doubly or triply vaccinated, and they got a breakthrough case. We all read about a possible fifth wave. We all know regions of the country where case numbers are falling, but we all know that there are regions of the country where case numbers are still rising. And we also know people who, for their own reasons, are choosing not to get vaccinated. And we also have children who are not yet vaccinated, which means that this year we can do Thanksgiving again with our larger crowd, with our family, with a bigger clan, but with trepidation and with asterisks and with questions. Liminal means ambiguous and confusing. And because we're in this gray zone, and because we're not where we were, but we're not yet where we need to be, and because it's confusing and ambiguous, it happens that people, even in the same family, partners to the same marriage, often do not see eye to eye on very real issues that we face every day. You know, honey, I am ready to go back to restaurants again. All I know is whenever I pass a restaurant, I see the restaurant is full of diners. They're not wearing masks. They're eating. They're drinking. They're happy. They're healthy. I want to go back to a restaurant. It's time. Yeah, I hear you, but I'm not comfortable yet. Honey, I really want to go back to theater. Broadway's reopening. Great theater in Boston's reopening. Theaters are full of theater goers, and it's time. Yeah, but I'm not comfortable. You know what? We used to travel. It's been so long since we've been on an airplane. I want to get on an airplane and travel. Get back to life? Yeah, but I'm not comfortable. To be liminal is to be in this space where it's confusing, and the truth is it's not only about the pandemic that is not totally over. The writer David Brooks, in his book, The Social Animal, he points out that there is an entire chapter of life for our children and grandchildren. It stretches from what he says 18 to 29. He calls it the Odyssey years because it's an entire generation for 11 or 12 years of being in liminal transition space. Here's what Brooks says. He says that there are 4 markers that you have left adolescence and moved to adulthood. 4 markers. And they are, you no longer live in your parents' home, and you get married, and you start a family, you have children, adopt children, you start a family, and you're financially independent. And Brooks writes that in 19 60, fully 70% of Americans who were age 30, 70% of Americans who were age 30 had done all four things. They were no longer living at home, they got married, they started a family, they were economically self-sufficient. And Brooks notes that in 2000, that number was now 40%. And 21 years later, and a pandemic ongoing later, that number is undoubtedly smaller. And we can hear the voices of what Brooks calls the Odyssey generation of people who are not here, they're not in childhood, they're not in adolescence, but they're not yet launched into adulthood. And that lasts a long time, that liminal thing. I would love nothing more than to have my own place. I would love nothing more than love. I would love nothing more than love. I would love a beshert. Just can't find my beshert. I would love to start a family. Just can't start our family. I would love a great job with a great income, but I got gigs and odds and ends and pieces. It's brutal out there. That's liminal. That's our kids. That's our grandkids. That's ambiguous. That's confusing. Not just Thanksgiving, it's life, it's liminal. That's where we are. Liminal, the word of the year, because that's where we are. Now, what do we do about liminal? So the address for liminal is actually our Torah reading today. Jacob is literally in liminal space. He's no longer living at home with his parents, Isaac and Rebekah, and his happy brother, Esau. And he's not yet where he needs to be. He hasn't yet met Rachel and Leah and Bilhah and Zilpah, and he hasn't had his kids. He's literally in the middle of where he was and in the middle of where he's going, and he falls asleep, and he puts his head on the rock, and he has his dream. And this is just so important. This is just so helpful. This is why you learn Torah. Jacob teaches us the main quality of what it means to be in liminal space. And I just so resonate with this. Here's the main thing about liminal space. You're always worried. You're always anxious. You're always worrying about something. You're never at peace. You have an interior life that is agitated. You have an interior life that knows no peace when you haven't yet arrived. And we learned this from Jacob because remember, Jacob has this dream, and I'm going to quote. This is God speaking. This is like the creator of the universe speaking to Jacob. And God says, "Remember, I am with you. I will protect you wherever you go and will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you." And Jacob is so moved that he famously wakes up from the dream and says, "Well, God was here and I didn't even know it." But it's what happens next that's just so telling. What happens next is Jacob starts worrying. Like the creator of the world has just said, "I'm with you. I'm not going to let you fail. I'm with you. I'm going to deliver you. You're going to land. I'm going to land with you." And Jacob says, what if? What if it doesn't work? What if I don't have clothes to wear? What if I don't have food to eat? What if things don't work out for me? What if I never find love? What if my life just doesn't work out? What if I can't? God, what if I can't? Now, can't we all hear those voices? Don't we all have those voices in this weird, ongoing, never-ending liminal space? What if I can't? What if what I'm hoping for never happens? What if this is as good as it's going to get? What if our kids never really find their way? What if my job never really takes off? What if I never really do find a partner? What if? That's where Jacob is, and that is sometimes where we are in liminal space. So here's what we learn from Jacob. There's kind of two moves with that. One move is, it can close you down. It can close you down, and what if I can't? Turns into I can't. Turns into I don't. And we live in perpetual lockdown. And we never get back to life. But that's not what Jacob does. Jacob's edge and anxiety, he channels it to have more strength and more energy than he ever had before. After all this worry, what happens next? He goes to see Rachel. There's this huge rock on a well. Nobody can remove it. He's just so bristling with energy and determination. He removes the rock. He falls in love with Rachel. He gives her a kiss. Love at first sight. And then he works night and day building and supporting a family. Jacob's edge gives him more energy for life. That is our question now. We all have edge. We all have the anxiety of liminal. Does it make us retreat, or does it make us go forward with greater conviction? There's 1,000 examples of this, but let's just say you're looking for love. Let's just say you've been on 1,000 bad dates. Let's just say you've kissed 1,000 frogs. Do you say, therefore, I'm done? Or do you say, therefore, I'm going to try again? Now, there's a whole conversation to be had about liminal and the synagogue. What does liminal mean for the synagogue? So, one night this week, I was at Evening Minyan, and I saw a beloved friend, he's been a long-time shul member, who before COVID used to come every Shabbos that he was in town. And I hadn't seen him in forever. I hadn't seen him since the pandemic began. And he was at Evening Minyan. He was at Evening Minyan to say Kaddish for his father. And afterwards, I said, it's just so good to see you. And he said, it's so good to be seen. It's so good to come back. And I said, you know, we're open on Shabbos morning. And he said, I know, but I'm not yet comfortable. And that's so real. And that's so relatable. And that's so broadly shared. And totally people should only come when they feel comfortable. But I wonder when in this liminal space we start reevaluating the costs of the choices that we make. So here's what I want to say to you. We are open. We are here every morning and every night, 7 days a week. And if you are thinking about making meaning, if you are thinking about the edge opening you up, not closing you down, if you are thinking about the worry impelling you forward, not in retreat, if you miss people, if you miss prayer, if you miss community, if you miss connection, by the way, he's back today for the first time on Shabbos morning. I have 8 words for you. Sheldon, come home. It's time to come home. Shabbat shalom.